Hello everyone and welcome back to Coin Bureau Clips. I am joined once again by Coin Bureau's CEO and co-founder,
What's up, guys?
Nick.
How's it, guys? Good, man. Great. Yeah, I've got some Q&A questions to go through today. Some great questions forwarded into our Instagram, so excited to get stuck in.
Absolutely. So Nick has bravely volunteered to help me answer some of these Q&A questions, as he says, that have been sent in on Instagram. So I think we'll just do it. I'll ask Nick one, and then he'll ask me, and we can each sort of give our two sats as to each one. Okay, Nick, question number one. It comes from And1BMX, and they ask, do you think the Bitcoin ETFs will have a negative impact on its decentralization narrative? Good question.
Yeah, very good question. I think that there's a few components here when you think about decentralization of a network, a cryptocurrency network like Bitcoin. There's decentralization of the mining power, decentralization of nodes, and then decentralization of the coin distribution. And his question, I think, is more related to coin distribution. And this is true, obviously, if big, massive institutions are accumulating all of the Bitcoin, then it is going to lead to whale, concentration. Now, is that a problem? Well, if the wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few players, then obviously they can have a more outsized impact on the price. If they ever selling, it impacts on the price, and it means that there's just going to be less Bitcoin to go around in the future. This is always going to be the case, right? Like, I think that the more people appreciate the store of value component, rich people and institutions and people who want to hold Bitcoin through an ETF, which may not be rich people, there may be people who just wanted to hold it through the IRAs and that kind of stuff, it will be accumulated by these institutions. So yes, it does take away from the decentralization narrative of a more, egalitarian network in terms of distribution of coins. However, it doesn't necessarily impact on the distribution of miners and nodes, which impacts on the security of Bitcoin, right? And because Bitcoin is a proof of work cryptocurrency, coin holdings don't really impact on, risk to security. It's as opposed to something like Ethereum, a proof of stake cryptocurrency, where the more coins you hold, the more voting power you have, the more you have as a validator, the more you can potentially attack the network. So yeah, I mean, it's obviously disconcerting for a decentralization narrative for coin supply, but not so much from a security perspective, which is what I think everyone is focused on. And everyone can still accumulate Bitcoin later on. If they're still held by a large supply, the more sats can always be denominated and Bitcoin can still be accumulated.
Yeah, I think, there is concern, isn't there, that big entities like BlackRock are starting to buy up Bitcoin mining stocks, which is definitely something to be concerned about, because as you say, that impacts the security of the network. But as far as distribution of coins would go, I would say that that's already fairly, not centralized, but, fairly unequitable in that, you have these huge entities like MicroStrategy, Grayscale, Michael Saylor, and soon to be someone like BlackRock. You do have a lot of entities that hold an outsized amount of coins, and there's not a huge amount left for everyone else.
True. Yeah. Just take a look at the Bitcoin rich list, and those are just the entities that we know of that are known to the public and that you can easily that are not likely to try and manipulate the price for any which way. There's always this narrative around, are there these whales, these big, nefarious, amorphous whales out there who can impact on the price, and that's a concern. But yeah, it is already pretty centralized. So
yeah, if you think about it, there's only ever going to be 21 million. I think about 19 million have been mined now or something. 1 million are sitting in Satoshi's wallet, which we kind of hope never get moved, because that would open up a real can of worms. And I think the estimates are is it something like in the region of 3 to 4 million have been lost?
Yeah, exactly.
Buried in landfill, or just people have lost the keys to their wallets or the passwords to their hard drives.
And it's also going to be, as more people unfortunately pass or they lose more, they lose crypto through other ways, the boating accidents like that. It's going to impact on the supply for sure, and it's going to remain in the hands of those who are smart enough to be able to protect their crypto through offline storage and aren't losing it, and those who want to accumulate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. All right, Nick, are you going to ask me the next
question 2 from Ila Courier. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. Can there be a bull market without a Fed pivot?
Another good question.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one. I would say no, is the short answer to that, because we need liquidity. We need new buyers for a bull market, and we need liquidity in the markets. And until the Fed basically turns on the money printer again, I don't see where that liquidity is going to come from. So, people talk about, a bull market having already started. But the question I always come back to is like, well, where are these new buyers coming from? Where is the liquidity? And if you look at things like credit card debt in the United States, for instance, mortgage rates, across the world, all these things are going up. People, I don't think, have the spare money lying around to invest in a risk asset like crypto. And that spare money is only going to come when Jerome Powell and co. Feel the need to turn the money printer back on. Now, when that will happen, I think is probably, you'll know that something has really gone badly wrong, because I think the Fed is pretty much committed to holding interest rates high for a fairly long time. So I don't think we can see a bull market without a Fed pivot. But Nick, feel free to disagree.
No, I agree. I think, the question is like a long sustained bull market, the kinds of bull market everyone dreams about, the kinds of bull market we've seen in the past. There could be a massive blow up, pop in the price of Bitcoin around these ETF filings and ETF application approvals, which by all estimates could potentially come towards the early next year. And that will see a rally in Bitcoin and euphoria around the market. However, you need liquidity to be able to sustain that bull market. You need to have, it's not just about the ETFs being available to the market, it's about the market and investors and retail investors and new buyers wanting to add Bitcoin to their portfolios.
Yeah.
There needs to be a risk on investment narrative going on, which is impacted by liquidity, right? The opportunity cost of holding risk assets is a safe investment with high interest rates, which is bonds, right? Fixed income instruments. So unless you have some sort of a decrease in interest rates, long-term interest rates, and the Fed does go towards a pivot, you're not going to necessarily see this liquidity flowing back. So there'll be a pump in the price of Bitcoin, which many people may think as some sort of, potentially perceive it as a bull market, but it's not going to be the sustained bull market. So you don't want to get tricked into that as well. And in terms of when that pivot could come, not until at least Q2, Q3 next year. It all depends on the factors around the dual mandate and inflation being the primary one right now, which is still a bit high, and inflationary pressures are still out there. Oil prices potentially rising. So, I don't think we'll see a sustained bull market until a pivot.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the things around the ETF that I think could be particularly bullish, because we've spoken so much about ETFs and their the possibility that they could sort of reignite the bull market. And as you've pointed out before, these huge buys, BlackRock buying Bitcoin, they're not going to do it on the spot market. They're going to do it OTC. So that's not really going to impact the price. The only thing I wonder that might impact the price of Bitcoin as a result of an ETF is sort of seasoned investors who want Bitcoin as a hedge. It's often talked about that, Bitcoin could be a sort of 2% hedge for a lot of people's portfolios. So that is the only place I think liquidity could come from, without the Fed.
Exactly. It's diversification from people. It's commodity investors general. I saw analysis that was looked at assuming 2% of gold ETFs, so people who invest in gold ETFs as a hedge are going to allocate to Bitcoin and Bitcoin ETFs, and there will be demand from that out of the gates for sure. And although BlackRock and these institutions could buy spot, they could also buy OTC. They may also try and buy spot, but they'll try and do it in a way that's limited price impact. So they'll do like TWAP and that kind of stuff. So they could accumulate in a number of different ways. But if there's so much of that at the moment coming out from all these ETF providers, Obviously, they're going to try and match demand. They're not going to necessarily buy up a large. They're going to go through the prospectus. They're going to go through the seed amount that's needed, and that will be matched with demand. So there will be a rally, because there will be those who are trying to allocate to Bitcoin as a sort of their narrative of, I need this as a risk, as a hedge on the current market conditions. But the kind of rally people want to see for the whole crypto, for Bitcoin and then the whole crypto complex, is going to come from excess liquidity, from investors moving towards looking at it as more of a risk-on asset.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that question. That was a good one. Zen57 asks, do you think prices could go way lower than here before the halving without a black swan?
No, I don't think necessarily. I think that we've seen a lot of the worst last year in terms of what could happen to the crypto market. To think back to how, if you were to ask yourself, if one of the top 3 exchanges in the world collapsed, nearly every single centralized lender, a massive hedge fund, one of the top 5 cryptocurrencies in market cap, and complete washout of retail, and that didn't drive you down to the bottom, then I don't think there's only 1 or 2 potential, things that one could think of as tail risks that could do that. But those are very, very unlikely. And then, of course, there are black swans out there, but this is without a black swan. So I don't think so, no.
Yeah. Prices can definitely dwindle from here, I think. I think the lack of liquidity could still be felt. But I think without a massive black swan catalyst, I can't see them going to the sort of lows that we saw sort of just after FTX, for example. But that is obviously without a black swan, and the nature of black swans is that you don't see them coming. So
I think that's the black swan is, sometimes people use analysis like this could be a potential black swan. It's a bit of a misnomer, because black swans are defined as those things which cannot be seen or foreseen, right? Like a complete meltdown of the mortgage crisis in 2008 and these certain things. So what could be black swans be of this nature? Satoshi wakes up and starts seeing all his coins. That's
Satoshi reveals himself and then transfers everything out of his wallet and into Pepe.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a potential black swan.
Black swan.
So something that you really don't see coming.
A meteor hits the Earth tomorrow, and then that's a black swan.
That's the ultimate black swan. Yeah. Now that we've said those, they're no longer black swans, and hopefully can't happen. Okay, next question.
Question 4. Now, I think there's a lot of questions that are related to question 4 around everyone's one of a very famous altcoin that we've got a lot of fans on. So question 4 is Cardano, obviously relates to Cardano, and it's from Dollar Khan. And he asks, can ADA reach $10 in the next bull run?
Okay. So ADA's previous high was around $3, wasn't it? It's currently around 25 cents. So that is a massive, massive move. Not only from here, but also from its previous all-time high. I don't think it's impossible. Like I say, I don't think we need to go over ground that we've just been over in terms of what we need to see for the bull run to happen. So assuming that a bull run does happen, assuming that we do get all this liquidity, then it is certainly possible. I will caveat by saying that market cap is really important when you're talking about huge gains, and ADA already has a very large market cap. So could it see those sorts of gains? Yes, I think the Cardano community is large. Mind you, I think when you talk about massive gains in bull markets, a huge and active community can perhaps be a bit of a hindrance to a massive pump like that, because remember, there are an awful lot of ADA bag holders out there. So, a lot of them will likely have bought in around that $3 mark, which means that if ADA pumps are back up to that previous all-time high of around $3 or whatever it was, then there will be probably a lot of sell pressure there. There will be a lot of true ADA believers who will hold on past that, previous all-time high. But I think bag holders are an important thing to bear in mind there. So yes, ADA can reach $10 in the next bull run, but it's going to have to be an absolutely crazy bull run for that to happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nick, do you agree or disagree?
I agree, but there's a few caveats as well here, and I think I probably want to do a bit more of a ADA analysis, because this also relates to one of the questions here, which is, why don't you hold COD ADA and stuff like that? I think that, so let's just start off with, there's the short term and the current market conditions, and then there's obviously the question that relates to the bull run, right? So I do agree with can it reach $10 in the next bull run? However, in terms of the short term, obviously there's factors around Bitcoin dominance is going up, and I'm going to lean on the analysis of Ben Cowan here. It's like ADA just broke through a recent level of support for Bitcoin ADA pair. So it could continue potentially fall to the 400 sats level, and Bitcoin dominance is rising. And in this kind of current market conditions, it's not too favorable for altcoins. So there is the potential that ADA could continue to fall relative to BTC in the next few months. So that's the important thing to state, potentially. Now, the question is more around the bull run. And I don't want to give away too much, but we've got a altcoin accumulation video coming out, Ultimate Guide to Altcoin Accumulation, that looks at when is optimal to start dipping into altcoins, and more specifically analyzing potential price levels for cryptocurrencies like Ethereum and ADA. But based on previous zones of support and historical levels within previous bull markets, it is possible that ADA would definitely go above the $10 mark. And there's many factors involved, assuming that we have this massive bull market with institutional capital flowing in. You've also got favorable altcoins that could benefit from that. For instance, recently we had the CMEs implemented ADA, SOL, and that kind of stuff as reference prices. So there's definitely could be institutional buying if they're looking to accumulate altcoins of any denomination. But of course, that's caveat that with the fact that, past performance in terms of looking at previous zones of support and resistance can never be used necessarily as a predictor of future returns. And we're looking at ratios there. But also, you have to assume that Cardano as a layer one can fend off a lot of the other competition in the layer one space, because there's a lot of alt ones that are vying for that. And we should also cast our minds back to previous bull runs when there were these supposedly god alt ones that faded into insignificance, that never ever reached and completely eventually died. EOS to name one. But I think that as a project, as a ecosystem and as a project like Cardano's, obviously they've got some dedicated people working on it. They're a big ecosystem, very big community support. And I think that there's a lot of scientific analysis and research going into the Cardano network. Obviously, they're facing scalability concerns, but I think most Ethereum's also got their scalability, right? Yeah. So, it's one of these things where we'll just have to take a look into that. But I think that also a lot of the alt layer ones out there, I'm not too bullish on. A lot of VC junk. So, yeah. But the long answer to the question, and a lot of the other questions that relate to Cardano, is, I think it could reach $10 in the next bull run, with a few disclaimers to that. Yeah.
I must say, when we were in Singapore recently, I bumped into quite a lot of people who are working in the Cardano ecosystem. And I've had, I've been had a few discussions with them in Singapore and afterwards. There are a lot of extremely clever and dedicated people working in the ecosystem. There are a lot of projects building as well. That's the main reason why I'm bullish on Cardano, or the main reason for being bullish on Cardano, is there are some extremely smart people working on there. So it's, a lot of people throw shade at Cardano. There is stuff happening. And I think perhaps a lot more than is happening in other ecosystems as well. So with a fair wind, and of course, competition's another big one as well, will another shiny new layer one come along and steal the narrative? But with a fair wind, Cardano can do very, very well in the future. So, sorry to interrupt you folks, but I have to let you know about the Coin Bureau deals page.
My team and I have been able to pull together some of the best promos and discounts in the whole crypto space. We're talking trading fee discounts of over 50%, thousands of dollars in bonus airdrops, amazing deals at top exchanges, reduced prices on hardware wallets, and much, much more besides. So just go to coinbureau.com/deals, also linked to below, and find the promo suited to you. Enjoy the rest of the video.
Okay, let's move on then to question 5. Sietzazanen. Can Bitcoin ever become the free money that everyone claims it to be when there's mandatory KYC?
That's a good question. I think that that probably relates to the question of KYC on exchanges. Because there'll never be mandatory KYC to utilize the network, right? You can, as long as you have Bitcoin, you can easily send it in a permissionless fashion. That's the whole narrative. That's the whole technology behind Bitcoin and decentralized blockchains. But yeah, I think as more and more exchanges require mandatory KYC, then it's going to be harder and harder to buy Bitcoin, assuming no other alternative to convert fiat for Bitcoin. So it does limit opportunities for people to buy it. But obviously, there are many other alternatives to accumulate Bitcoin. I mean, there are still ways into which you can buy it through OTC, through cash.
Yeah.
There are ways in which, assuming you have it through, you have other altcoins and other cryptocurrency, you can convert it through bridges. So there will always be a way to accumulate Bitcoin. Well, short of a CBDC, short of all money becoming cashless society, which is something which we, I think that's a big concern for everyone. If there is a cashless society, how on earth are you going? You don't have cash, and all exchanges require mandatory KYC. How are you going to get Bitcoin without, short of people bartering their goods, gold maybe?
Yeah. Well, this is something I think about a lot because people talk about a Bitcoin standard, and I think perhaps the real future for Bitcoin is going to be, or Bitcoin is really going to survive and thrive if it can function as its own monetary ecosystem. So if people are happy to exchange goods and services for Bitcoin, because if I have some Bitcoin sitting in my hardware wallet, you have Bitcoin sitting in your hardware wallet. Yeah. So, if people are happy to exchange between themselves in Bitcoin without going via exchanges, for example, then Bitcoin can thrive. The thing is that you probably need to get your hands on it sooner rather than later, not financial advice.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't sort of leave it too long, because the route that we're going down, this is why so many Bitcoiners are and others in crypto are concerned about things like CBDCs, because there will become a point where it is either impossible or very, very difficult to get hold of Bitcoin without the central banks or governments knowing about it, or even trying to get hold of Bitcoin and the central banks and governments stopping you from doing that.
Yeah.
So, it's I think the sooner you accumulate Bitcoin, the better. Now, obviously, everyone has their entry point for that, but yeah, I do feel that if a Bitcoin economy can grow up,
exactly, because then you won't need to interoperate with the traditional fiat financial system. It could just become the medium of exchange, and thereby people can just exchange whatever, and you'll be able to get hold of Bitcoin if you are selling particular goods or whatnot in the exchange, because it is the medium of exchange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question 6.
Yeah, there was a lot of questions around altcoins. So start with Marcus Majuri asked, any coin picks with smaller market caps?
Okay, wow. All right. Well, this is a difficult time to answer this question, because I'm pretty convinced that most altcoins are going to fall further from here.
Yeah,
that's from all the analysis that I've seen. That is something that I feel is probably more likely to happen than not. So I am kind of hesitant to recommend any altcoins or, to say any altcoin projects that I'm interested in, purely because I think their price will probably go down from here. So I have to caveat it with that. I am watching certain sectors. I am watching decentralized social media, for example. I am watching DeFi as well. I still think there are, some good DeFi projects out there, like Aave, for instance, that generate lots of money in fees and, are good, solid projects in themselves. So that's a couple of niches to look out for. However, I think what I should probably talk about is, a lot of people, I see another question here, bear market ending, really? When do you restart coin analysis? Now, I know lots of people either got into Coin Bureau, or one of the things they enjoyed most about the work we did was our altcoin reviews, that we don't do so much now for some of the reasons I've just outlined. Also, there's not a huge amount of interest from, the sort of wider viewership, if you like, for a deep dive into a particular altcoin project. So as a result, this is something that we started recently. Some of you may have heard of Coin Bureau Club, which is our new subscription service that we launched at the beginning of September. Now, the point of Coin Bureau Club is a kind of separate hub. It's not on YouTube or anywhere like that. It's our own custom-built website. And that is where we are now covering altcoin projects. So just recently, so our first couple of reviews, we did a review on XRP and then we did a review on Tron. But more recently, we've sort of been diving into kind of smaller projects as well. We did one on Quant Network, which is up there. That was a fascinating one to do. We've done one recently on Metal Blockchain, on Kleros, and we have a couple of others in the works
as well.
Oh yes, XLR, a project that's a Cosmos-based interoperability protocol. I've talked about XLR before. That is another project that I think is worth looking at. So that's where we're sort of covering altcoins these days. I should also say that Coin Bureau Club users, they get to vote. We do a weekly poll. What altcoin project do you want us to cover next week? People can vote on it, and we also have a research feed there where we post kind of our general thoughts about crypto, our general thoughts about altcoins in particular. I posted something about a particular altcoin project that I was watching, and then Nick absolutely roasted me a few posts later, saying it was a zombie project. And anyhow, we're actually doing a review of that project.
Well, I should have bought more votes on that poll.
Yeah. So that is where we're talking about altcoins from this point on. I should say that we will still cover some altcoin projects on the main channel in the future. But it's difficult for us to talk about especially about microcaps, because if we do a review of a microcap altcoin on our main channel, then that can have all sorts of unintended effects. So that's one of the main reasons.
And we never want to be accused of trying to shill any particular coin on the main channel, because people could say, oh, you just talk in your book, whereas we just want to provide completely impartial, our perspective. You guys vote, you decide, you can decide what's in the polls, and then we'll cover it for you. And if in any case we ever hold any of these coins, it will be fully disclosed. But this is mainly just for you guys, for the club members, to provide value in the best way we can through our in-depth altcoin reviews.
Yeah.
Actually, this ties into an interesting question again, which is Guy's defo from Cephas
SJP Hayes.
Yeah. Guy, interesting name. Guy's defo avoiding my constant quant requests.
Yes. All right. Yeah, sure. So as I say, Quant Network is one of the ones that we covered on Coin Bureau Club. So the full review is up there. What I will say, from what I remember from that video, so Quant Network is an interesting one, and lots of people are very interested in it. And we do get a lot of questions about Quant. Now, Quant started life as, I think, a really, really good idea. It was this idea of it. So for those unfamiliar, Quant Network is not and never was a blockchain. But its offering was Overledger, which is a kind of blockchain operating system. So it was this kind of big interoperability play, to create this operating system that could basically sit on top of other blockchains. A really good idea. The thing is that Quant Network has kind of pivoted quite a lot. I mean, it's basically done a complete 180, and it is now aimed much more at TradFi. It's so much so that it is doing, it's basically going down the CBDC route. And what's kind of odd is that we're pretty sure that CBDCs are not going to be on a blockchain. So that does kind of, it means obviously Quant itself is not a blockchain, but it's providing this overledger service for blockchains. So when you see a crypto project, a project like that pull such a 180, it does sort of, it does kind of ring a few alarm bells, I think. But having said that, Quant Network, the guy who started it is an extremely capable guy. It does seem to have a very good team. We did struggle to find a lot of information about it. A lot of Quant Network's social media seems to have been scrubbed. A lot of its code is closed source, things like that. So, there was a lot to unpack.
Yeah, I think that a pivot isn't necessarily a bad thing if it's done in the right direction. You can't continually go down a route if it's not necessarily what the market dictates, or if you don't think there's going to give you a large opportunity for growth as a project. I think that the question around potentially its lack of social media and that kind of stuff is because I think it's mostly focused now on being a B2B solution, right, over Ledger itself, which, given the amount of demand for blockchains or like decentralized solutions within TradFi, it's not necessarily the worst pivot. Is it terrible that they're going to? Well, obviously, none of us are fans of CBDCs, but if that is what central bankers have a yearning for, and you are a technology company that is going to be providing the platform for them to do it, well, I mean, then that's a smart business move. What it means for the token itself, I mean, you guys have to watch the video on the hub for that.
Yeah. Still an interesting project, but one I'm not too sure about. Okay, let's move on. Question 7: which hardware wallet, Nick?
So I'm a fan of Trezor, but I guess that's just because of the fact that they've been around for a really long time. I have most of my wallets are Trezor wallets, although I do diversify with a few others. I do have a Ledger as well. Why Trezor? I think they haven't had any sort of breaches or security breaches of any sort, although Ledger hasn't. Ledger did have that database breach, and there was also that massive snafu with regards to potential seed exfiltration, or the miscommunication around coin cover, kind of stuff like that. Another wallet which I'm a big fan of, I met the CEO as well. It's probably a really safe wallet as well, is the Engrave, which is a completely cold air-gapped wallet that is operated through a QR code, no connections through sort of Wi-Fi and sort of USB. So there is very little chance at all. There's no chance of any sort of seed exfiltration. So there's not even the functionality to do that as you would have with some of these other wallets. But it's a long answer, but I guess Trezor is my preferred hardware wallet.
Yeah. Engraves are great. Coin support isn't great. I use an Engrave. I keep some Bitcoin on it. Engraves are a bit more expensive. I mean, they're the most expensive hardware wallet solution on the market at the moment. But that said, as Nick said, they are very, very secure. So I do use an Engrave. Trezors are generally my favorite as well. I have some fairly old Trezors knocking around that I've had for a long time. I do have a Ledger somewhere. I don't have very much on it.
Yeah.
Trezors are. I was really impressed with the new Trezor device, the Trezor Safe 3.
Yeah. Question 8 is from Leighton053. If Bitcoin's price was stabilized at say 50K, would investors still be buying?
It's an interesting one. I guess it would. Bitcoin's price has been fairly stable recently, around 25K, 26K. But I think eventually Bitcoin is going to become a fairly stable asset. I think that in the distant future. And I think that would present a kind of, let's face it, most people are buying Bitcoin at the moment because they believe the price is going to go up fairly significantly. But I think if Bitcoin's price did stabilize at 50K or indeed kind of any other level, I think that would still present a value proposition for a great many people, because then, Bitcoin's narrative as a store of value becomes more pronounced. As a way of protecting your purchasing power. That makes a lot of sense. So, short answer, I think people will still invest in Bitcoin if the price stabilizes kind of anywhere, really.
Yeah, exactly. I think that it all depends on where they're going to be accumulating, depends on where they think Bitcoin is going and how much they value Bitcoin. And how, so even if it's 100K, 200K, 300K, any arbitrary level, it all depends on the factors of, the investment case for it. And of course, when we come back to the point around most of Bitcoin out of circulation and people see it as a store of value, and especially if if the traditional financial system collapses, then any price is not too high. I mean, it's it's the hedge against the traditional financial system. Yeah.
Okay, Louis Vasquez asks, how much Bitcoin do you have?
Ooh, that's that's a tricky one.
That is a question, Louis, that I'm not going to answer. I tell you something though. When I first discovered Bitcoin all those years ago, one of the things that kind of attracted me to it was this idea of privacy. Now, that narrative has changed a lot in the last few years. Bitcoin is not nearly as private as people think. It is not nearly as anonymous as people think. But that was one of the things that initially attracted me to it. So I do get asked this question quite a lot, and I do get asked the sort of question of how much crypto I have, etc. I think one of the most important things that you can do as a crypto holder is keep that sort of information to yourself. In the same way that I would never say how much what my net worth is, because and I mean this in the nicest possible way, it's no one's business but my own. But also, I think if you're a crypto holder, then you don't want to say, because you don't want people to know how much you've got, for obvious reasons. If people know that that you might be sitting on an enormous stack of Bitcoin, for example, that could make you vulnerable to all sorts of things. So for many reasons, I prefer not to say. I could have anything between just a few sats or a few Bitcoin, but I'm afraid that's all I'm going to say. Nick, are you going to tell them instead?
Unfortunately not. No. I agree. There's two golden rules of crypto. Rule number one, not your keys, not your crypto. And rule number two, no one needs to know how much Bitcoin you have. And I understand why many people ask this question particularly because many people like to, flaunt how much Bitcoin they've got, but there's many risks that come with that. I think that part of the benefit of Bitcoin is this idea that you and only you are the person who can know what that is. No bank, no one else. The moment you volunteer that information to the world, obviously it becomes a massive security risk, right? You don't want to end up like a few examples of people who've had the $5 wrench attack on them, because that's a very effective attack.
Yeah.
If you don't know what the $5 wrench attack is, obviously it's where it's a very sophisticated attack where basically they can use a $5 wrench and knock the hell out of your head and ask you to hand over your seed words. So no one wants to fall victim to that. So no.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, cannot tell.
I should state for the record, being a slightly recognizable crypto person, that if someone was to $5 wrench attack me, I have no way of getting my hands on my Bitcoin in the moment, or very easily at all. The vast majority of it is stored in hardware wallets, which are themselves stored in different locations around the world. And the private keys to them are stored in other locations around the world. I don't actually have any crypto apps on my phone either, because I have heard stories of people being, having their crypto stolen, at knife point and stuff that way.
And SIM swaps,
and
exactly.
SIM swap attacks. So your crypto security should always be top of mind. I don't personally believe the majority of people need to have an exchange app on their phone. I know plenty of people disagree with me, but unless you're sort of trading on the go or unless you're kind of a professional trader, I don't think you need it personally.
Yeah.
But if someone was to try and rob me for my crypto, I wouldn't be able to hand over a sat. So, don't bother. And if you're thinking of trying to rob Nick for his crypto, I mean, look at the size of it. Good luck. Question 10. Is it my turn? Well, I'm just going to ask. Yeah. Maramanja asks, what? Aren't you a CEO of Coin Bureau? I think he means me.
Yeah.
No, I am not a CEO of Coin Bureau. Nick and I co-founded Coin Bureau, the YouTube channel, together. But I must say, when it came to the discussion about who is going to be CEO, it was pretty clear cut. I have virtually no experience of running a business. Nick is a lot more experienced in that regard. Nick is a much more natural CEO than I am. So it was there wasn't really an awful lot of discussion over it, was there?
Yeah, I mean, but to be honest, I mean, we're still a startup mode. I think the whole idea of titles is a bit weird in that sense. I mean, we still have getting our hands dirty in a lot of different ways. I get my hands dirty in the content. We travel around. We do B2B. We go networking. We're now here involved in a Q&A. I was on a live stream. So to be honest, I think that the whole idea of it, the title itself, I mean, if you want to look at roles, sure, I can fill that role. But at the end of the day, we're all on the ground, getting our hands dirty, doing similar things, building the dream, or living the dream.
Living the dream,
yeah.
So it does, the natural question that flows from that is, do you have business cards saying, I'm CEO bitch on them?
Yeah, I do.
That was why you wanted to be CEO.
Yeah.
It's not titles. I guess sort of it's a weird thing because this started off as a YouTube channel, which it obviously still is, and then we kind of grew a business around it, and it kind of felt a bit weird when people asked us what our titles were. A couple of years in, because it's sort of like, I don't know, like I present the channel, I research crypto. Nick was researching a lot of crypto, doing, as he says, getting his hands dirty and stuff. It's like, what is titles? It's
exactly. I mean, like I said previously when I first did an interview in the beginning of the year, it's basically like the role was operations, but now obviously we got to look around growing the channel and networking and business development, which is more around, and also strategically thinking where we want to be positioned. And that's more like a CEO role strategy, right?
Yeah. Okay, final question. Question 11. Are you going to ask this one?
Yeah. So this is from Jerson Feta, and he asks, do you plan to be bullish again? There's missing an L there, okay. But do you plan to be bullish again, Guy?
I plan to be bullish again. I mean, I am bullish. I'm just not very short-term bullish. Yeah. I'm bullish on crypto in the long term. I still think the next few months are going to be difficult. Possibly 2024 as a whole is going to be difficult, even with the halving coming up in April. But yeah, people often say that I'm bearish. I'm only kind of bearish in the short term. Long term, I am about as bullish a person as you'll find on the crypto, on crypto in general. I think there is only one way in the long term, and that is up. But we do have a lot of short-term hurdles to overcome. Nick, when are you going to be bullish again?
When am I going to be bullish again? I mean, I woke at the beginning of this week. I woke up really bullish with that ETF stuff, But no, in terms of, I agree. You can't be in the long term 100%. I mean, I'm in this industry because I believe in the power of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin as the traditional financial system is just not fit for purpose. I believe in crypto, and I'm in this industry for that reason, and I've basically bet everything on it in a certain degree, right? Because I'm working in it, I hold a lot of my wealth in crypto, so I'm bullish long term. But of course, there's short-term hurdles, and it would be irresponsible to constantly be a moon boy out there. Bitcoin's going to X, Bitcoin's going to X. People need to, appreciate the fact that there are these short-term hurdles, and we have to be cognizant of them. But I mean, still bullish in the long term, muted bullishness. Maybe that will change when we start seeing the actual ETFs rolling out and the Fed starting to pivot, and then it's all green candles, boy.
Yeah. I should say as well, like, again, going back to this, lots of people accuse me of being bearish. And others, others who do the kind of same job on other channels. A lot of us get accused of being bearish, and my answer to that is like, well, if we really were bearish, then we're really in the wrong job here. If I didn't believe in the long-term future of crypto, like, this job would be absolutely soul-destroying for me. Like, there'd be very little reason for me to do it. So the fact that as long as I'm still here, as long as I am still on Coin Bureau blabbering on about crypto 24/7, then you can take it as read that I am bullish long term.
Like, nothing annoys me more than these perma bears, or like the ones who are out there constantly shooting like the FUD around potential collapse of cryptocurrency, or this exchange is going to collapse soon, it's going to lead to an ice age in crypto. It's like, okay, well, what are you going to be doing? Well, if you're in crypto right now, most of the narratives, most of your entire being has been in the crypto markets. What are you going to do short of that? You're just going to now go back to being a gold merchant, or
yeah?
Are you going to go back to? I think we're not that kind of bearish. We're just cognizant and aware of potential risks in the market.
Yeah,
and that's just been smart analysts, not necessarily a bear.
Yeah, and having a long-term time horizon. Yeah. Okay, that is all the questions for today. Thank you everyone who sent questions in, and I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you, Nick, for joining.
Pleasure being here. Yeah, it's fun. Maybe I should do it again sometime.
Absolutely. And of course, Jessica and I will be back doing Q&As in the near future as well. So do keep your questions coming in, and we will be back with you very soon.